Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about my top 32 ranked wide receivers for week number 1 of the 2022 fantasy football season. But before we could get on into today's video, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you hit a like down below. It would help me out a ton. And if you do want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. So without further ado, let's get into my breakdown of the top 32 wide receivers for week number 1. We begin with wide receivers 1 through 8, headlined by Justin Jefferson, wide receiver of the Minnesota Vikings, going up against the Green Bay Packers this week. Now, as we got closer and closer to fantasy football draft season, where a lot of people do their fantasy drafts at the end of August and early September, Justin Jefferson on a lot of fantasy football platforms leapfrogged over Cooper Kupp to be the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy football. Now, on Thursday night, we saw Cooper Kupp, and it seems like things are going to be the exact same with him. The man absolutely dominated, even though they got the shit kicked out of them by the Buffalo Bills. In today's video, we're not going to be talking about any of the wide receivers that have already played, because there's no reason to rehash that. The game's already happened, so we're just talking about the wide receivers going forward on Sunday and Monday. Justin Jefferson up against the Green Bay Packers. There has been so much talk about this offense potentially being more pass-heavy this season. I think that will be the case, and I expect Justin Jefferson to put up a hell of a year. And up against the Green Bay Packers, this could be a very high-scoring game, so I like Justin Jefferson here as my number 1 wide receiver. At number 2, we move to Davante Adams of the Las Vegas Raiders, going up against the LA Chargers. This is another matchup that screams of points. This could be a very high-scoring game. Now, I know there are some people that are worried and a little bit tepid on Davante Adams because of the move from Green Bay to Las Vegas. Now, obviously, going from Aaron Rodgers to Derek Carr is a downgrade, but it's not the craziest downgrade ever, right? It's not like he went from Aaron Rodgers to Zach Wilson or something like that, right? Derek Carr is definitely a solid quarterback in here. Up against the Chargers, I expect Davante Adams to see a healthy and high dosage of targets in this matchup, so I like him as my number 2 wide receiver. Closing out the top 3, we have Jamar Chase of the Cincinnati Bengals going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. These top 3 guys, in my opinion, you can really rank any of them as the number 1 wide receiver on this week, and I wouldn't even bat an eye. They are very, very close in my mind for who I feel as though is going to be the number 1 wide receiver at the end of the week. Jamar Chase has crazy upside week in and week out. We know that Jamar Chase is one of those few wide receivers in the NFL that truly has game-breaking upside, meaning that he is going to individually, even if you have a couple players that don't play the best, he could put your team on his back and just win the week for you. Jamar Chase up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Sure, the Steelers defense is pretty decent, but here I still expect Joe Shiesty and this offense to put up some solid points. Out of the top 3, Jamar Chase is really the only wide receiver that has a 1B to his 1A. Like, Justin Jefferson is Adam Thielen, who's the 2. Davante Adams has Renfro, who's the 2. But T. Higgins and Jamar Chase are on a very similar skill level, in my opinion. Now, I obviously have Jamar Chase ranked higher, but he has the better competition around him, in my opinion. And they also have Tyler Boyd, who's fucking amazing as well. So there will be some games where Jamar Chase fades away, which is why I have him ranked at 3. Again, does that mean I think he's some shitty wide receiver? No, it's just his situation is a little bit more dicey, I would say. But again, it's not like he's super risky or anything. It's just that I feel as though the other guys are a little bit safer. At number 4, we have CeeDee Lamb of the Dallas Cowboys going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They will be without Michael Gallup this week. Pretty clear that CeeDee Lamb is going to be peppered with targets all game long up against the Bucs. The Dallas Cowboys going up against the Buccaneers is a very interesting matchup. The Dallas Cowboys, last time these two teams played, could not run the ball for anything. Ezekiel Elliott looked like he was trapped in fucking quicksand trying to run the ball up against the Bucs, but the passing attack did work pretty well last time. I think CeeDee Lamb could have a field day because of the amount of targets that he's going to be getting, so he is my number 4 receiver on the week. At number 5, we got Mike Evans of the Bucs going up against the Dallas Cowboys. Now, Mike Evans is likely going to be without Chris Godwin in this game. If miraculously Chris Godwin ends up playing, I highly doubt that that's the Chris Godwin that you're used to. I think it's going to be more they roll Chris Godwin out. Again, I don't think he's going to play in this game. But when he comes back, they're going to roll him out slowly. He's going to play. Defense is, oh shit, watch out. It's Chris Godwin. But it's not going to be the same Chris Godwin. They're going to slowly ramp him up more and more and more until he eventually becomes that wide receiver that literally could be a top 5 wide receiver week in and week out. So right now, it's going to be Mike Evans, a little bit banged up version of Russell Gage, and Julio Jones. So Mike Evans is the clear number 1 on this team. Now, I know there's a lot of talk right now about, is Giselle and Tom trouble in paradise? Is Giselle going to divorce Tom? I honestly don't think that's going to affect Tom at all right now. I really don't think it has any effect on him. The guy's a fucking robot up against Dallas. I think Mike Evans could find pay dirt. He could score that tug at least once in this game. At 6, we got Michael Pittman Jr. going up against the Houston Texans in Houston. This is one of the easiest games on the week. Last year, the Indianapolis Colts legitimately ripped the Houston Texans a new asshole not once, but twice. And that was with Carson Wentz. Now, they might just go even deeper. They're going to rip a gaping hole in the metaphorical buttocks of the Houston Texans. I expect Michael Pittman to play amazing. The only worry is that what if they're just winning by so much at the beginning that they just run all the way at the end of the game, like they're really committing to the run? Well, you don't score that many points without Michael Pittman doing well. He is the clear number 1 wide receiver on this team, and this is looking like a humongous season for Michael Pittman. There's a reason why you drafted him so high in your fantasy draft. There's a reason why you drafted all these top 8 guys so high in your fantasy football draft. It's because they're fucking good, so you're definitely going to want to fire them up. At number 7, we got Deebo Samuel, wide receiver of the San Francisco 49ers, going up against the Chicago Bears in Chicago. Now, this is one of those games where the weather could legitimately be an issue in this game. It also seems like basically a lock at this point that George Kittle is not going to play in this game, and it seems like this George Kittle injury is incredibly serious, and this could be a multiple week absence for George Kittle. I don't think George Kittle being gone is necessarily positive correlation towards Deebo having a crazy game, but I figured it was something to note. Even if the game's a little bit rainy, Trey Lance is going to throw the ball to his best receiver, which is Deebo Samuel, and Deebo might get some rushing opportunities in this game as well. This matchup is soft as baby shit up against Chicago, so even with the weather being a little messed up, I still like Deebo. At number 8, we have A.J. Brown, wide receiver of the Philadelphia Eagles, going up against the Detroit Lions. Now, it came out last night that A.J. Brown was stung by a bee during practice. He's allergic to bees. They had to EpiPen him right in the thigh, I think is what I read. And the man was struggling to breathe late into the night. That sounds scary. Now, I'm not a doctor. I'm as much of a doctor as Johnny Sins, who isn't an actual doctor. He's more of a plumber because you can watch him lay the pipe. But you know what I'm saying here. A.J. Brown, that's not great. But again, I'm not a doctor, and I don't think that getting allergic to a bee is going to affect him 2 days later on Sunday, so I think he should be good to go on Sunday. This is a good matchup for him up against Detroit. So even after Barry B. Benson ended up stinging his ass, I still expect him to have a pretty good game. So he is still a top 10 receiver for me, unless some news comes out that this is very serious and that he could miss the game or something. But right now, I just don't really see that as being possible. Now we move to wide receivers 9 through 16. At number 9, we have Hollywood Brown, wide receiver of the Arizona Cardinals, going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, as the week has gone on and we've gotten closer to Sunday, I have started to get so pumped about Hollywood Brown. Rondale Moore, out. Hollywood Brown is in. DeAndre Hopkins, out. Zach Ertz could be out. Who the fuck are they going to throw the ball to? The answer is Hollywood Brown. They brought him in for a reason. Kyler Murray, who struggles to see over the offensive line, who needs to bring a goddamn step stool to brush his teeth and see himself in the mirror, he is going to ball with Hollywood Brown. The Kansas City Chiefs defense ain't that great. We saw that game up against the Buffalo Bills. Everyone saw it. Hollywood Brown is in a great spot here to put up a crazy amount of numbers in the highest point total via Vegas on the over-under. I like Hollywood here. I don't like him. I love him. I love Hollywood Brown just as much as Tom Brady loves kissing his son. So at number 9, we're going Hollywood Brown. At number 10, Keenan Allen of the LA Chargers going up against the Las Vegas Raiders. The reason why I like Keenan Allen so much in this game over Mike Williams. Now, again, Mike Williams, who we're going to talk about at number 16, is incredibly inconsistent. Mike Williams, who we'll just talk about him right now, and I guess we'll talk about him later at 16. This guy will have a game where he takes a defense that's amazing. He'll take Jalen Ramsey and put him into the dirt, make Jalen Ramsey look like he has no idea what the fuck he's doing, and then the next game, go up against, just imagine in your head, who's the worst DB in the NFL? He goes up against him and then gets locked up. Can't do anything. And then 2 games later, he has a fantastic game again where he carries your team. Keenan Allen, while he might not be as flashy as a guy like Mike Williams, Keenan Allen is safe. Keenan Allen is like wearing a condom and your girlfriend's on birth control and she has an IUD or whatever those things are called. I don't know exactly what they're called. I'm not a specialist like that. Not a gynecologist. But I do know about football, and I do know that Keenan Allen is really fucking good. So up against the Las Vegas Raiders in what should be a high-scoring game, we're going to go with Keenan Allen here as a top 10 wide receiver. At number 11, we got Tyreek Hill of the Miami Dolphins going up against the New England Deflatriots. Another game with potential bad weather here. Rain in Miami. Tua and Tyreek. Tyreek has gotten basically down on his knees and sucked off Tua Tagovailoa to the internet. We've seen it. Tua is better than Pat Mahomes. All these crazy things Tyreek is saying, to me, I think what he's doing is just pumping Tua up. You know what? I'm going to make Tua comfortable with me. I'm going to say Tua's amazing, and then Tua's going to keep throwing me the ball. It's going to work. I think it's going to work. Up against New England, the kind of thought process on Bill Belichick is that he shuts down the number 1 option on this team. So could Tyreek struggle? Potentially. But Tyreek Hill is just so fucking good. He's so fucking fast. How do you stop this man? They don't have a cornerback that is as fast as him. Tyreek Hill is going to eat the Patriots defense alive. I love Tyreek this week. Top 12 wide receiver. Number 12, we got Wiki DJ Moore of the Carolina Panthers going up against the Browns. I love me a nice revenge game. Baker and DJ Moore, a great connection. Now, DJ Moore, for years, has been an excellent wide receiver that has dealt with shit-tier quarterback play. These quarterbacks that cannot find him in the end zone. This man has not scored more than 4 touchdowns in the NFL. I'm hoping this year with Baker Mayfield, again, I'm not saying that Baker Mayfield is the second coming of Jesus Christ or something as a quarterback, right? I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that he's better than all these other fucking bums that DJ Moore's played with, and that could help DJ Moore score more touchdowns, hopefully starting in week 1, where he finds pay dirt. I like Moore up against the Cleveland Browns. It's very clear that Moore is by far and away the clear lead target in this offense, especially with Baker Mayfield under. At number 13, we have Mr. T. Higgins of the Cincinnati Bengals going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers at home in Cincinnati. We talked about T. Higgins when we talked about Jamar Chase. This is an offense where there's a 1A and a 1B. Chase the 1A, Higgins the 1B. This is a team that if they're firing on all cylinders, Higgins and Chase could legitimately be top 5 wide receivers on the week. Now again, this isn't the most ideal matchup on earth, and every time AFC North teams play up against each other, literally anything can fucking happen. The Steelers, realistically, should have no shot against the Bengals. But since this is an AFC North matchup, maybe this one is able to be incredibly close. I like Higgins a lot. Again, he's a great player. You drafted him super high. All these guys, you just drafted them so high that you're bound to play them. At number 14, we got Courtland Sutton of the Denver Broncos going up against Seattle in Seattle on Monday Night Football. Now, I have been banging the drum all offseason, pumping up Courtland Sutton over Jerry Jeudy. Now, a couple of months ago, Sutton and Jeudy were going back-to-back Michael Jordan 96-97 in fantasy football drafts. They were going basically right next to each other. And then the pendulum shifted, and everyone and their mother hopped on the Courtland Sutton bandwagon with me. I've been on it since the beginning. Choo-choo, all aboard the train, and I kept banging the drum for him. I still think he's the clear number 1 target on this team. Now, if I am wrong, and Judy's the number 1 guy, then guess what? Next week, Judy's going to be up here as a top 16 receiver. I like Jeudy. We're about to talk about him again. I think he's a good player. But I think if Russell Wilson locks onto Courtland Sutton here, he might be a top 5 wide receiver because this matchup is so easy. The Seattle Seahawks defense, remember back in the day, the 12th man, this great defense. What happened? This is not the same team. obviously, right? That was like fucking 10 years ago. Not the same thing. The Legion of Boom, no longer. Gotta think of a new name. The Legion of Doom, the Legion of Boom. What should we call them? The Legion of... We gotta think of a name. Someone in the comment section think of a new name for this defense. I'll start thinking about it too. The Legion of not being good at football. That sounds terrible, but you get what I'm saying, right? This defense is far from what they were in the past. So Cortland Sutton should easily be able to torch him here. So at 15, we got Deontay Johnson of the Steelers going up against the Bengals. I've been a big Deontay Johnson guy as well. I understand that the reason why DJ's been so good the last couple of years is because Big Ben Roethlisberger just has some type of crazy infatuation for this guy. You ever seen where people get a tattoo? It's like, oh, I love my mom on their like right arm. Says it's a heart. It says mom. I'm pretty sure Big Ben has a tattoo that says I love Deontay Johnson, because this was so crazy, because Big Ben towards the end literally looked like Stevie Wonder in the pocket. He looked like he couldn't see anything. And then, magically, when he threw it to Deontay Johnson, it looked like vintage Big Ben. Like, the ball would just magically go right to him. It was so crazy. It was so crazy. And then he'd throw it to, like, Chase Claypool, and the shit would be a duck. It would be terrible. It looked like Duck Hodges threw the goddamn ball. So Deontay Johnson here is still good with kissing titties Mitchell Trubisky. He's banged up. The shoulder injury could hamper him here. I think he's going to play. I'm pretty sure he's going to play. The shoulder injury could potentially play into him not finishing as a top 12 guy. So I've got that baked in a little bit here. Bake that one in. Up against the Bengals, though. The Bengals, I mean, if Eli Apple's covering them, that dude's going to be burnt like toast, baby. Deontay Johnson, I like him this week. At 16, we got Mike Williams. I kind of already talked about this, so just to rehash real quick. Up against the Raiders, high-scoring game environment. Mike Williams might be the wide receiver 50 at the end of this week, or it might be top 5. But I put him at wide receiver 16 because you got to understand the risk with him. I'll continue to talk about this, but you drafted him pretty highly. Going up against the Raiders in a high-scoring game. Might shit the bed. Might literally take a shit directly on your chest. But he could do the same thing to your opponent and just really destroy them. So I love Mike Williams here up against the Raiders, even though he's risky every single week. But yeah, you get my point here. Now we move to wide receiver 17 through 24. But before we get into breakdown of these players, I would like to give you guys a quick word from our friends and our sponsor over at Underdog Fantasy. Now you guys know Underdog Fantasy because I've talked about them all off season long. I love Underdog Fantasy because of their off-season best ball drafts. I loved the Best Ball Mania 3 tournament. $2 million to first place, $10 million prize pool. But now we're in the regular season. They also have regular season best ball drafts. Now I know you might be thinking, Nick, I'm tired of drafting. That's okay. Wait till next week. Then I'm sure you're going to be pumped to draft again. 6-team contests. You draft against 6 people. You draft 6 players. And you could potentially win big money on there. It is incredibly fun. I love doing it. If you're not into drafts, that's okay, because Underdog has other stuff as well. They also have higher or lower contests. We'll pick a player on the screen here. Brandon Cooks. For instance, this isn't the actual line on there. Over under 67 yards. 69.5 yards. Well, 69. Very nice. Right on the dot. 69 yards. Higher or lower? You pick it higher. He goes over 68 yards. And then you match that with another one. Hunter Renfrow over 62 yards. They both cash. You get your money. So make sure you check that out. It is incredibly fun to draft on Underdog, and the higher lower games are also very fun. If you use promo code Stokastic, you will get a $100 first match deposit bonus. So you deposit $100, you receive an additional $100 Rooskies. So at number 17, we got Rashad Master Bateman going up against the Jets. Now, we haven't really seen Bateman flash at the NFL level, right? We've never seen him look amazing. But now he's the number 1 receiver. Hollywood Brown, who we just talked about a little bit earlier, he is in Arizona. So Rashad Master Bateman is the numero uno wide receiver in this offense. Now they have Mark Andrews, so obviously Mark Andrews might end up out-targeting him at the end of the season, but you get what I mean. He's the number 1 wide receiver on this team, and they are facing the sorry Jets. Lamar Jackson did not ink a new contract. He didn't get that new contract signed, and he bet on himself, which Calvin Ridley did, and now Calvin Ridley's suspended for a whole season. So that's fucked up, isn't it? But at the end of the day, Rashad Bateman up against the Jets. This is a cakewalk walk. The only reason why he's ranked at 17 is because we've never really seen him flash in the NFL level. If we saw him last year bust off some crazy plays, I'd be like, holy shit, Rashad Bateman's a top 5 wide receiver this week. But I'll calm down a little bit. I'll calm down. I'll deflate myself a little bit, like a football when you're playing up against the Colts. So, Rashad Bateman here, 17 at wide receiver. 17. Pretty high. Nothing crazy, though. At 18, we got Jalen waddled away, waddle, till the very next day. Bum, 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 bum. Now, earlier, I tried to debunk the narrative about Billy Belichick, just shutting down the number 1 wide receiver. I don't think he can shut down Tyreek Hill. I literally don't think it's possible. But if he does, shuts down Tyreek Hill, then guess who's going to get the ball? Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle's been banged up. Everything I've seen, I'm a Dolphins fan. I heavily stare at the fucking injury report. Need to see what's happening. Jalen Waddle seems to be good to go. I'm pumped. I think Waddle is in for a really good spot, and he is in for a masterclass of a game if they shut down Tyreek Hill, because then Jalen Waddle will be heavily peppered by Mr. Tua Tagovailoa, who's already in the Hall of Fame, according to Tyreek Hill. At number 19, we got Mr. F1 Scary, Terry McLaurin, Washington versus Jacksonville. Now, for years, that narrative I talked about with DJ Moore has been put on Terry McLaurin. This guy's quarterbacks have sucked. This guy's had a carousel at the quarterback position of guys playing quarterback for him. He's had Heineke. He's had Kyle Allen or Brandon Allen. He had one of the Allens. He's had Fitzpatrick. He's had all these quarterbacks. Now he gets Carson Wentz. Is that really an upgrade? Slightly. If only he got Matt Ryan, then maybe I'd be just as excited about DJ Moore, or just as excited about Terry McLaurin as I am with DJ Moore. Up against the Jaguars, again, kind of like what we were talking about with Seattle. This isn't the Saxonville Jaguars no more. The Jaguars might win this game. I hope they do. I like Doug Peterson a ton. But McLaurin's still the number 1 receiver on this team. Now, I think Jahan Dotson could be very sneaky. Like a legitimately sneaky pickup at the end of this week who just balls for the rest of the season if Wentz feeds him the ball. But on paper, McLaurin's the guy. They're going up against the Jaguars, so you're going to play him. At number 20, we got Brandon Cooks of the Houston Texans going up against the Indianapolis Colts. Now, again, we talked about this game. This could be an absolute ass whooping. This could be like when you did something bad as a child and your dad would whip out the belt and smack you in the ass. That's probably what the Houston Texans are going to endure from the Indianapolis Colts. But, when you're down in the game, what do you have to do? Survey says, throw the ball. You have to throw the football when you're losing. So, when they're down, they're going to throw to their best receiver. Their best receiver is Brandon Cooks. Pretty simple. The guy's going to get a lot of volume. Again, Brandon Cooks was not the most sexy pick in fantasy drafts, but all this guy does is put up 1,000-yard seasons. So, wide receiver 20 seems pretty fair to me. Could honestly be ranked a little bit higher. I think he's a very safe option every single week for your lineup. At number 21, we got Jerry Jeudy of the Denver Broncos going up against Seattle in Seattle. Now, again, we already talked about this, but the too long didn't read version is, I believe Sutton is the number 1 receiver on this team. If you believe Jerry Jeudy is, then take Jerry Jeudy and throw him up to where Courtland Sutton was, and take Courtland Sutton and throw him where Jerry Jeudy was. I understand that. Again, I'm still on the Courtland Sutton bandwagon, but Seattle's defense sucks donkey cock, so Seattle could be in a really bad spot, and Russell Wilson just picks them apart. It's a revenge game. I like Jeudy here. Wide receiver 21. At number 22, we have Hunter Renfrow of the Las Vegas Raiders going up against the Chargers. Now, there's so much hype about Devontae Adams, people are forgetting about how good Hunter Renfrow is. Got a lot of grit. Lunch pail kind of guy. Hunter Renfrow going up against the Chargers. High-scoring game total. High-scoring narrative means you got to throw the ball. If somehow Devontae Adams gets locked up, Renfro's going to be getting peppered. I like Renfrow here in this spot again. Not super excited about him, but I do think he's a very safe player every single week. Number 23, another lunch pail kind of guy, Adam Thielen of the Minnesota Vikings going up against the Green Bay Packers. Another spot here, again, we're talking about a more voluminous offense, trying to throw the ball a little bit more here, up against Green Bay. Jefferson's the guy. Jefferson's going to have those crazy games, but Thielen's going to keep churning out fantasy points for you. He's probably never going to score 35 points like Jefferson could, but could he score 20 points? Yes. He scored just as many touchdowns last season as Justin Jefferson, and Justin Jefferson played more games. Kirk Cousins likes Adam Thielen. He likes to target Adam Thielen in the red zone, where you get a lot of points. Adam Thielen here up against Green Bay seems like a for sure top 24 wide receiver. Now we enter the range where, again, I still like these guys, but things start to get a little bit more spicy. You start to really think, do I want to start this guy, or are there other options that are potentially better? Amon-Ra St. Brown, to me, this week is definitely risky. The Philadelphia Eagles defense is not stacked, crazy, or something like that, but they are good. And probably above good, probably closer to great. But to counteract that narrative, to push against that narrative, I also think Amon-Ra St. Brown is great. So I think he could still have a solid game. Top 24 wide receiver, but just not as excited about him because I'm not in love with this matchup. Now we move to wide receivers 25 through 32, headlined by Darnell. Here comes the Mooney. Mooney, 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 Mooney. Up against the Niners. Bad matchup. Bad matchup against the Niners. This could be a blowout. They're going to have to throw the ball even if it's raining. Besides Darnell Mooney, all they have is fucking Cole Kmet and the Pringle man, Byron Pringle. They have a bunch of scrubs. Justin Fields, I don't think is that amazing, but maybe it's the fact that Matt Nagy had fucking shackles on this guy, screwed him over. Maybe that's the case. Maybe that's the narrative you want to ride with. I've liked Darnell Mooney all offseason. I don't love this matchup, which is why he's not a top 24 receiver in my rankings. He isn't. But do I think he has the upside? Yes, I think he's going to see a shit ton of targets here up against San Francisco. The question is, will he be able to catch them? Because I think that this is a tough defensive matchup. So I'm not elated to play Darnell Mooney this week. I'm not ecstatic. I'm not screaming to the mountaintops about how you must play Darnell Mooney this week. I'm not going to say that, but I am still pretty content with playing him. At 26, we got Mr. Corvette, Juju Smith-Schuster, the king of TikTok. On the Chiefs against the Cardinals. We've sucked off this matchup already, how much I love this matchup, but I don't know about these wide receivers in Kansas City. Would it surprise me at all if Marquez Valdez-Scantling was the number one receiver in targets, the number one fantasy receiver on the Chiefs? No. Would it surprise me if it's Hardman? No. I'd be a little bit more surprised if it was Hardman because I don't think Hardman's very good. But could it be Sky with 2 eyes more? Yes. So there's a lot of competition, and they have Kelsey, and they have Edwards-Helaire who can catch the ball. But one of these motherfuckers is going to be fantastic this week. The problem is, I don't know which one of these motherfuckers it is. And I don't think anyone knows who it is. People tell you, oh, I like Juju this week, I like MVS this week, and I like all of them. Because they all have crazy upside because of the matchup that they are in. But I can't tell you for sure that you want to lock in Juju. I just don't want to tell you that. I like Juju. I'm going to play him. I'm excited about the matchup, but he might lay an egg for you. He might play really bad and MVS does play really good. So we'll see. This is going to be very fun to watch. And just to get out ahead of things, if you play Juju this week and he sucks, don't over panic. Don't be like, fuck, I'm cutting Juju, because in week 2, Juju could go crazy. I think this is going to be a very unpredictable offense for which wide receiver is going to be the guy every week. Makes it very interesting for fantasy. Don't make it annoying. You're going to want to pull your hair out. But when you hit on the guy, like if you hit Juju when he plays well, man, oh man, that's a potential week-winning player. 27, we got MT Michael Thomas of the Saints going up against the Atlanta Falcons in Atlanta. Michael Thomas is definitely far from a lock to play in week number 1. Now, if Michael Thomas does play and he's healthy, then Michael Thomas could be literally the number 1 receiver at the end of the week. Michael Thomas is incredibly risky. It's like going to a glory hole. It's a risky situation. But Michael Thomas here up against Atlanta is a very fruitful situation. So we'll see. We'll see. Do I have the confidence to tell you to roll him out there and expect greatness? No. But if you have the cojones, if you have the balls, and you want to risk it for the biscuit, then go ahead and do it. Because if he plays, the upside is immense. At 28, we got Christian Kirk of the Jaguars going up against Washington in Washington to all 7 fans there. I've made this joke in like every video. Maybe it's not funny, but it's funny to me. The Washington Commanders barely have any fans. Christian Kirk is a guy that earlier on in the offseason, I was off of. I was not thinking positively about Kirk because I was thinking, oh, I like Marvin Jones. I think Marvin Jones could be the number 1 receiver. But then we see preseason, when Christian Kirk and Lawrence are on the field, Kirk is getting Salt Bae styled peppered with targets. So then I have a epiphany and I start thinking, oh, Christian Kirk Might be the clear alpha guy there playing in the slot, getting a million targets in these games from Trevor Lawrence. So with that knowledge, even though Trevor Lawrence was not very good last year, despite being highly touted by everyone, everyone thought he'd be good. I did too. Blame Urban Meyer for that. Christian Kirk gets the big buckaroos. They back up the Brinks truck for this man. They give him one of those checks, basically, to where when you win the fucking lottery, you get that cool check. I assume that's what they gave Christian Kirk. His contract made no sense. Made no sense. Now, again, this isn't shitting on Christian Kirk and me telling you Christian Kirk's a bad wide receiver. I just don't think he deserves the amount of money that the team gave him. But even with that said, I still like him this week up against Washington. At 29, we got Amari Cooper, another very interesting player going up against Carolina in Carolina, because we will see what is Jacoby Brissett going to look like, and what is this offense going to look like? Is this potentially just a situation where Amari Cooper is going to get just tunnel visioned by Jacoby Brissett, and he's going to see a crazy amount of targets in this offense? His target share is going to be insane, because I think in the back of my head here that potentially this is going to be a system where Amari Cooper just sees the ball a zillion times, and like, who cares who the wide receiver 2 is, right? Because they don't really have a clear number 2 receiver, and Brissett is just peppering Cooper. But there's also a scenario where Jacoby Brissett just sucks so bad at football, he's not a good quarterback at all, and then Amari Cooper's just terrible because his quarterback sucks. So we will see on Sunday. We will see. Very interested for that. At 30, we got Elijah Moore of the Jets going up against Baltimore. Everything that I have read is that Elijah Moore is about to get so many targets. He is going to be laser-eyed by Joe Flacco. He's just going to feed him the rock. He's going to throw him the ball a bunch of times. They're going to lose. They're going to lose big. The Ravens are going to be scoring and scoring and scoring and scoring and scoring. Elijah Moore is going to keep getting targeted by Joe Flacco. Look, Joe Flacco is not good. But if this narrative does become true and Moore just gets so many targets, he's bound to be good. He's bound to be good in fantasy. 31, Devonta Smith of the Eagles going up against Detroit. Now, I personally have been off of Devonta Smith all off season. Think he's a great player. He won the fucking Heisman for a reason, because he's a very talented player. But with A.J. Brown coming to town, how much are they going to be throwing the ball? Is there enough room for Smith, Goddard, and A.J. Brown to all eat at the exact same time? I'm not too sure. There might be too many cooks in the kitchen for this offense with Jalen Hurts. I know there's people out there that think Jalen Hurts is as useful as a used condom, right? I know that. I think he's a good passer. I don't think he's a great passer. Maybe he can keep up with all this. Maybe he can, or maybe he can't. Now, if A.J. Brown misses time, if A.J. Brown misses this game, then Devonta Smith gets catapulted up the rankings. He just has to, because he's the clear number 1 then in that situation. So Smith, playing him in limbo right now. Wide receiver 31, closing out the top 33. There are 32. Brandon Ayuk of the Niners going up against Chicago. Pretty similar situation for both of these guys. 2 quarterbacks that may not necessarily be the greatest passers, but have a lot of rushing upside, and there's a lot of players on each of these offenses that are good. But for the Niners, without Kittle, Ayuk is in a really good spot. Now, the rain could heavily hamper this, but we did see a lot of clips out of training camp, very positive towards this Hurts and Ayuk connection, and Ayuk making a lot of great snags in training camp. Now, do you see everything in training camp clips? Of course not. They really only show you the good or the really bad. You never see a play, you're like, oh, that looked decent for Ayuk. Okay job. You always see the Ayuk reach back like Odell Beckham Jr. fucking 360 no-scope catch in the air, or you see Trey Lance looking like he can't see it all, throws the ball directly into the dirt or something. It's like you either see the most positive clips out of camp or the worst. So Ayuk in an interesting spot here without Kittle. I'm not banging the drum for him, but I do think he's a decent start. Not ideal, obviously. None of these guys are guys that I'm super elated to start, but I do think that they are decent. So thank you guys all so much for watching today's video. If you did end up enjoying, please make sure that you hit that like button down below, as well as hitting that subscribe button. It would help me out a ton. And if you would like to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. So I love you guys all so much. I hope you have a great rest of your guys' day. Make sure you use promo code Stokastic on Underdog Fantasy. That $100, $100 first match deposit bonus. I appreciate you guys a ton. I love you so much. Hope you have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, goodbye.